So you're thinking about moving to Dallas. In this video, we're going to give you 9 things that you need to know before you move to Dallas. Stay tuned. I'm Brian White. Hey, welcome back to Moving to Dallas Guide. This is the channel where we give you the latest information on what's going on in the Dallas real estate market. So whether you're moving to Dallas or just making a move to your next home in Dallas, we want to make sure that your questions are answered and that you feel comfortable and confident making this your best move yet. So I'm Brian White, your local Dallas real estate expert. And today we're talking about the things that you need to know before you move to Dallas. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe. We do videos each and every week, and we want to make sure that you've got all of the information you need, again, so you feel comfortable and confident. So the first thing you need to know before moving to Dallas is that we don't ride horses to work. I say that joking, but I grew up in Dallas, and my friends from out of town often thought that we actually did. They thought we still rode horses to work, and that's just not a thing anymore. Now, we do still wear boots. Some people do still wear cowboy hats. Now, when you're driving from neighborhood to neighborhood, particularly in some of the more rural areas, but even in some of the areas close to town, you're still gonna see cattle. But the reality is we don't ride horses to work. In some cases, because of traffic, it might actually be faster. Maybe we should go back to that. But we don't ride horses to work. We drive cars. We have a terrific highway system that's got a couple of different loops. We have a great east-west highway system because now you may or may not know that Dallas is made up of Dallas, Fort Worth, goes up to Denton, and then now Frisco has become a major hub. So Dallas and Fort Worth alone are 26 miles apart. When you're driving from one to the other, you would never know that because it is nonstop city from place to place. Okay, the second thing that you got to know about Dallas is that we have wacky weather. You really need to be in the know about what's going on with Dallas weather. So the first thing that you probably already do is it gets hot. It gets hot in the summer. We'll have months, in some cases over 30 days in a row, of temperatures that are north of 100 degrees. So it gets really hot, and it is relatively humid. So it's not as humid as, say, Florida or Houston, but it does get humid. So you're definitely going to feel the heat. The thing that surprises a lot of people is that it actually gets cold in the winter as well. Now, again, we're not talking New York or Minnesota kind of cold, but it does get down into the 20s and 30s. It does snow in the winter, but just last week it snowed here, was down into the low 20s for several days. And then just a few days later, I'm gonna go play golf. So we see those kinds of temperature swings, which can make Dallas a lot of fun. Because of the warmth here and the relatively moderate winters, we've got really long seasons for outdoor activities. There are a ton of state parks within an hour to an hour and a half drive of Dallas. There are a number of them right here in the Dallas area. There's White Rock Lake, there's Lake Grapevine and Lake Louisville. There are a number of places where you can go to boat. We've got really long boating season for skiing and fishing. You can stand up paddleboard, you can kayak. You can really enjoy that lake life in a number of areas across North Texas. The other thing about North Texas that a lot of people don't know is there are a ton of hiking trails. I mentioned that there were parks all across North Texas. I mentioned that there are state parks all across North Texas, but many of the local neighborhoods and parks also have great trails and hiking systems that are fun to take advantage of. And then because the seasons are so long, like I mentioned before, you can play golf in December and January. This Friday, it's going to be 75 and sunny. And unless you're in San Diego, it just does not get better than that when it comes to weather for playing golf. The greens are still in pretty good shape. The fairways are green, so it can be great to play year-round here in Texas. In addition to the season being long, there are actually a number of great public and private courses spread all across North Texas. Charity golf tournaments are a big activity and something we have a lot of fun with. And then you may or may not know, it's been announced now and they're in the construction phase, but the PGA Headquarters of America, they've moved their headquarters to Frisco. So they're building, I think it's 45 holes of championship golf in addition to having that headquarters. So you can definitely see how golf is going to be a growing and booming activity in North Texas. And because of that long year-round season, it's a great place to play all year. Okay, the next thing that you got to know about Dallas before you get here is how the school systems are laid out. So school districts in North Texas matter. There are a few exceptions where you've got what's called open enrollment, but for the most part, school districts are mapped and they are hard lines. So you need to live within the mapping of an individual school and a school district for your kids to be able to go to those schools. That matters not only for the school, but it also matters for your property taxes. The property tax rates are going to vary based on the school district. That's one of the reasons they're so strict about school districts. Something else you want to make sure you pay attention to is school district philosophy. So we have some really big schools here in North Texas. We measure the size of schools by 1A through 6A, and 6A are the largest schools. They do that because that way the sports and band programs, the various UIL programs, have an opportunity to compete against schools of similar size. Different districts have very different philosophies for how they build their schools. There are districts like Allen, Texas. Allen is famous for having the massive football stadium. And Allen's strategy is all of the schools, from all of the elementary to the middle schools, they all feed up into one massive high school. Now that makes their program super competitive. It's a great developmental system, but it can also be challenging because only a certain number of kids get to play in various sports or get to play in the band. So if your kids are in some of those sports, that's something you want to think about. The flip side is, for instance, Frisco ISD. Now, Frisco has a strategy to have multiple high schools, and that way having more schools that stay at least relatively smaller gives more kids an opportunity to compete, more kids an opportunity to play in sports, play in band, and do the various activities that they might want to as part of a school. So neither is right or wrong, but you get to determine what's going to be the best fit and the best area for you and your youngsters before you move to the area. There are, of course, a number of private schools spread across North Texas. You're going to want to take a look at those just depending on, number one, your economic capability to go to private school, send your kids to private school, but also they're going to have various specialties. They're going to have the things that they're known for, whether that's a particular STEM focus, it could be a religious preference or tradition. So it could be a wide variety of things, but there are a number of great schools spread across North Texas. And you're going to want to do that research just to determine what parts of town do you want to live in if one particular school is going to be more important to you. Okay, something you got to know about is the Texas State Fair. They say everything is bigger in Texas, and that is absolutely true of the Texas State Fair. It's maybe an odd thing to talk about in a video about moving from one day to the other, but there are state fairs in pretty much every state across the country, but it is such a big deal in Texas. It's the granddaddy of them all. The Texas State Fair is known for weird food. We're the original author of the fried butter. We got fried Oreos, fried Cheetos, fried Pop-Tarts are actually one of my personal favorites. But each year in October, you get an opportunity to try out a bunch of crazy food, great rides, and just a terrific fair atmosphere. It becomes part of one of those things that you just got to do when you're living in North Texas. One of the other things that's become a huge part of the tradition of the Texas State Fair is the Texas OU game. So that's the University of Texas football team versus the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, I'm an Aggie, so I don't like any of it, but it really is a big deal for people as part of the community. It's a big rivalry out of Austin and Norman, Oklahoma, and Dallas sits right in the middle. So one of the big things about the fair is having the big game. And for so many years, it was actually right there in Fair Park, right next to the fair. As many things change, now the game is held at what we call Jerry World. So it's at Cowboy Stadium in Arlington. That is absolutely the Taj Mahal of football stadiums. Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, has built a fantastic facility. So they move the game there, it gets a lot more people, still creates that fun atmosphere, a fun competitive game, and it's a part of the fun of being in North Texas. So carrying on that team, it's important that Dallas-Fort Worth has a ton of sports teams. You name it, we've got it. We've got the Dallas Cowboys for professional football. We've got the Dallas Stars for hockey. We've got the Texas Rangers for baseball. The Dallas Mavericks for NBA basketball. We've got FC Dallas for football, what we call soccer here in the US. So we've got just about all the sports. We've got minor league teams. And what's cool is the teams are spread out all across Dallas. There are a number of teams that are headquartered in Arlington. That's an area where the Dallas Cowboys and the Texas Rangers play, but the Mavericks and Stars are right there in downtown Dallas in a place called Victory Park. Park. It's a great name for a stadium at the American Airlines Center. And then Frisco has now become the booming spot for practice facilities. The Cowboys and the Stars both have practice facilities up there. The Dallas Mavericks have the developmental team. So there's just a ton going on. There's the Frisco Rough Riders as a minor league baseball team. So just so much sports all across the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Now the problem is, and the thing that you got to get used to is, none of them are really very good. And I've lived here for a long time. It's super frustrating to be a sports fan here. We've got all of the teams, we've got all of the sports. It's been since like 1996 since the Cowboys won a Super Bowl. It's rough going. Okay, everything is bigger in Texas. So the areas are bigger in Texas. And there's 8 million people in North Texas now. And the reason that's important is when you're looking for neighborhoods and you're looking for various suburbs, it's a lot of land to travel. And as somebody coming from outside of the area, it can be hard to know what areas are going to be the best for you. That's where we come in. We can help. We work just about all of the areas across North Texas. And if we don't, we have friends that do. So we can certainly help you. There are many big areas. The other thing that's bigger in Texas is houses. When we talk to people moving in from all over the country, we build mansions in North Texas. They're homes in the, traditionally and consistently in the 3,000, 4,000, in some cases even 5,000 plus range. So really big houses in Texas. That is not necessarily, particularly for newer neighborhoods, does not necessarily mean that the yards are bigger. When you're looking at master plan communities, a lot of times you need to kind of balance what you're looking for in terms of home size and yard size, particularly it fits your budget. The other thing that's huge in Texas is the property tax bills. Property taxes are a thing in North Texas. Because we don't have a state income tax, property taxes are going to be a key part of the way the local municipalities pay for, fire and emergency management services. There are water districts that increase taxes, and then schools are also funded by those local property taxes. So property taxes are going to be higher. You're not going to have that state income tax, but property taxes are something you're going to want to look out for and plan for. And then the last thing, and that's the lagoon at Windsong Ranch. Whether you move to Windsong Ranch or not, you absolutely have to check that out. Windsong Ranch is a master plan community in Prosper, Texas, and it has a lagoon in the neighborhood that is 5 acres. I kid you not, it is 5 acres. They do stand-up paddleboard and kayaking, just all sorts of activities in that. So the amenities in Texas neighborhoods are terrific. So when you come, let's talk about that and talk about what amenities are important to you, whether we're talking about whether you need a lagoon or neighborhood pools, tennis courts, basketball courts. And what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about things that are at country clubs. These are things that many neighborhoods provide as part of the HOA. Those are just amenities that they have. So that's different, and something that's been booming in North Texas. As more and more neighborhoods come out, they're adding more and more amenities as one of the attractions. So it's a lot of fun and something you definitely want to check out. So be aware, there are critters in North Texas. That's something you want to know before moving to Dallas. When I say critters, so there are horses. So we don't ride horses to work, but there are still horses on ranch land and horses spread out all across North Texas. Going along with that is cattle, right? You could drive through areas just not far from downtown Dallas and still see cattle roaming on ranch land. It's really part of the beauty and part of the charm of being in Dallas and Fort Worth. So there really are snakes in North Texas as well, and that's something that you want to be aware of. There's a city near us called Copper Canyon. It's named because there are copperhead snakes nearby. So just something to be aware of. There are not nearly as many rattlesnakes, and most of the snakes across North Texas are not poisonous. But snakes are good. They're good for you. They eat rats and mice and lots of the other critters, but you should be aware that snakes are a thing. There are also lizards and mosquitoes. Because of the nature of our weather and the fact that temperatures don't get that cold and don't stay cold for that long, mosquitoes don't always get killed by the winter freeze. So something to be aware of, something to plan for, because everything's bigger in Texas, including the mosquitoes. Okay, I mentioned the master plan communities earlier, and they are spectacular. There are a number of them spread all the way across North Texas, from Pecan Square and Harvest in Northlake to Mustang Lakes in Salina and Windsong Ranch. There's Stonebriar Ranch in Frisco. There's Hollyhock. There are new neighborhoods popping up each and every week. So you should definitely check out some of the master plan communities and the amenities. We work with builders all across North Texas. And what's interesting is many of the builders are building in a variety of the master plan communities. So it's great to know who some of the best builders are, the quality of the product, and what they're building in different neighborhoods. So when you're moving here, we can help you figure out, okay, what's going to be the best spot for you and your family based on what it is that you're looking for and what your goals are. Man, there are so many great things about living in Dallas, Texas. Hey, if you are thinking about making a move to Dallas, then we'd love to help you. We'll include our contact information in the description, or you can schedule time to chat with us via the link below. Thanks so much. Now hang out and watch this next video.